another wrestler passed away as well. And this character of wrestling, this man of wrestling, we talked about him before in the Retro Blood, and we're going to continue talking about him. One of our favorite pro wrestlers of all time, Terry Funk, tragically passed away on Wednesday. I mean, past episodes of the Retro Blood, every time we brought up Terry Funk, we always loved everything he did. I still remember the whole review that we did for Tuesday Night Titans. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where he was fucking ripping on Tony Gurria in the fucking fake bar, spitting on everybody, doing bar fights. One of the best segments of all time. And, Terry Funk, this guy has done it all. You know what I mean? When you look at his body of work and his career pro wrestling, he has literally done it all. So.
Yeah, he really has. He's had like 5 different retirements, but he just can't. He never could stay away from it. Yeah. He was wrestling not that long ago. Honestly, it's been. It might have been before COVID. Yeah. But remember that time we were talking about going to Greenville to see him? It was him and somebody else.
Yeah,
because FDR was wrestling at that show.
Yeah, I was like,
and we were going to go, and it was and he was at a tag team match at 78, 70, probably 5 years old. The guy just couldn't give it up. I can remember watching when I first got back into wrestling, watching the Beyond the Mat documentary, which I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah,
where he goes to talk about. Goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, you don't even have cartilage left. Your knee's just like grinding bone on bone. He's like, I don't even know how you're walking.
Yeah.
And then he still didn't even retire then, and then didn't even get that replacement for years. I don't think. I think he just continued on wrestling the way it was for a few more years.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about that, because they were mostly doing a lot of that filming Beyond the Mat in 1997. And, Terry Funk would go on to wrestle more in the WF. Then he would go to Japan, and then he would have that stink in WCW, around that whole time right after. And he would even do that, he would do 2 ECW, one night stands. The first one he did was that one that Shane Douglas was promoting over WWE's one night stand. And he wrestled for them. I think he wrestled Raven on that show. And then he came out the next year, I think it was around 2006, when he was in that tag match that I recently watched. It was Edge and Mick Foley versus Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer, and like a tag team Extreme Rules match. And this guy was fucking bloodied eye and shit, fucking blood everywhere, fucking falling on, barbed wire and shit, just going crazy. And I was like, damn, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
I think. But, the Funk, around the 80s, man, like him and his brother Dory, I did not realize this until I was doing some research about him, that, I knew the Funks were really big in All Japan, but I didn't realize how big they were. They were pretty much like the gatekeepers of getting foreign talent to All Japan, because they had so much clout over there.
Yeah, they were loved. And supposedly, like, according to what I've heard, like Abdul the Butcher say, like, working for All Japan for Giant Baba was much better than working for Inoki. So people, like, he would get people to go over there, and he would get people into All Japan, and that was like a much better gig than working for New Japan, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were beloved. Them and Stan Hansen. Even now, like, if you supposedly, I don't know if this true, I haven't been there, but supposedly if you just walk up to a random, like, if walk up to anyone in Japan and start talking about professional wrestling, like, here they might say Hulk Hogan, but they're going to say Terry Funk.
Yeah, which is crazy,
because he's just known as the professional wrestler.
Yeah, beloved character. And it's crazy to think, because in the 80s, he was all over the place. He wrestled in Memphis versus Jerry Lawler. He had feuds there. He had feuds in Georgia Championship Wrestling. He had feuds in the WWF around 80, 84, 85. All Japan. And then in the tail end of the 80s, he was fighting Ric Flair for the belt. I mean, so he was just around the whole spectrum of the wrestling, areas. And he did great on all of them.
Exactly. Didn't it go straight out of the trilogy with Steamboat right into that program with Funk? Yeah.
Yeah, with the pile driver on the... The only thing I remember... So that match is awesome, by the way, and we'll probably do a review about it sometime there in the near future. But the spot that I remember is him pile driving Ric Flair on that table. And then Ric Flair talking about how he messed up his match, and he's like, yes, by that pile driver, that's when hardcore was made popular.
Yep.
By that match. I was like, come on, man, really? But
I mean, it may have made it more mainstream for sure, though.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody with that style, brawling style, made it mainstream, is definitely Terry Funk, because the cool thing about Terry Funk that like I said, we're going to continue talking about him on this show. But the cool thing about Terry Funk was not only could you have a very technical wrestling match with this guy, but you could also do a brawl. Like it could be either one. It don't matter. Like, okay, you want to catch can mat wrestling? No problem. We could do that. Oh, you want a crazy wild fight in the fucking stands or like an empty arena? And you hit this crazy man trying to brand your ass by talking shit? Oh, he could do that too.
Yep. We can do that too. Yeah. Exactly.
And like it just I remember my first encounter with the Funker. So I never met him before, but like was watching him on the TV. I didn't watch in my shoot life. You know what I mean? Not my retro blood life. I actually was watching wrestling in the 90s. Okay.
Yes.
But I remember the first match I ever seen from Terry Funk was when it was the part where, Mick Foley was feuding with Austin, and he was like Dude Love. He was the Dude Love character. And he got beat by, there's a big disqualification stuff that happened at the Unforgiven match. That's when Austin hit McMahon with the chair and everything.
Yeah.
And Mick thought like the whole, McMahon was trying to screw him over and stuff, trying to dress him up like a dumb gimmick and stuff. So he came out there on Raw one time with some sweatpants and everything. And he was just talking about, like, why are you giving Goldust the number one contender? I should be the number one contender. I don't want to wear this Dude Love crap. Why are you having me fight my best friend, Terry Funk, and everything? And there was, like, this whole show built up of these two best friends fighting. And it was to show, like, it was trying to show that Mick Foley's character was, like, a little bit sinister. Like, he was selling out more to get the belt. And they showed all these clips. It was crazy. Like, this is during the 90s. And they were showing clips of Terry Funk versus, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack for the death matches and FMW. They were showing that like live on fucking TV, all these death matches, all this stuff exploding, everything with those two to build up their friendship. You see them talking and everything. And then they go out there and they fucking have a fucking wild match. And I would just remember seeing the whole thing. I was like, man, this fucking old dude, like, he's like wild. He's just going out there fucking throwing shit around. His facial expressions were great in matches. Like, he brought a lot of emotion to matches. And, that was just like a normal, I would say that was probably one of his best matches at all. It's probably like maybe one of his like okay matches. But, I just remember seeing that and it kind of made an impression on me. I was like, man, this fucking guy is wild. Like, he's just a wild character.
Yeah. Like, I knew who Terry Funk was from the old days of when I liked wrestling as a kid, but I'd never really thought about him again, and I never really considered him very much until I got back into wrestling as an adult and like really started appreciating it, understanding it, being a little smartened up and understanding a little better. But I'm pretty sure the first time I saw him again, he was Chainsaw Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the
WWE.
Yeah, that was the whole era that was talking about the whole match I was talking about. They just broke up after that. But he came back to the WWF as Chainsaw Charlie after. Mm-hmm. So it's like he has like a lot of weird runs in WWF. Like he had that '85 run, you know what I mean, where he was like the fucking cowboy out there trying to brand everybody. The one that we talked about with the cool bar scene, which is probably one of my favorite skits in wrestling. And when he came back, he did he did a couple shots, and he was on Shotgun Saturday Night. Apparently, he cursed too much, so they let him go. Something happened on Shotgun Saturday Night where they let him go, and then that's when he went to ECW. And he basically was the one who got ECW on the map.
Yes, he made ECW. They may have been eventually have gotten to where they were.
Yeah,
but he basically got them that pay-per-view, from what I understand. Like that, they would not have been able to get that first pay-per-view if it hadn't been for his name.
Well, the reason why is because a lot of those people in ECW, they're household names kind of now, but back then they weren't that well known. Terry Funk, he was a national star because he was on the WWF and WCW, so they knew who he was. Wrestling fans knew who this guy was. And they liked him because he was a pretty prominent figure. Obviously you're a prominent figure fighting Ric Flair in a title match, So they're like, okay, let's see where this guy's doing. And then from there, they used him to put over a lot of the new guys, which he did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And probably the second most famous person in ECW at the time might have been Shane Douglas. If he was there at that time. I can't remember if he had left or not.
Yeah, he always goes back and forth, I would say.
But yeah, because ECW, for people who don't really know, was a promotion. It was an indie promotion in the 90s. And it became known as being a hardcore kind of promotion. But it was basically a promotion for wrestlers that had something wrong with them. If there was something about them that they weren't going to make it in WCW or WWE, and it's usually height. So usually they were good wrestlers, but a little bit too short.
Yeah.
And they just, they weren't really given a chance. They weren't going to get a chance because they're not 6'3" or whatever. Of course, all that changed. ECW helped break the doors down for all those people. But yeah, Terry Funk came in, and then they made that barely legal pay-per-view, which really set them on fire. And they were going after that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So. It's just crazy to see all the decades that this man has his fingerprints on, when it comes to the wrestling world. I mean, I remember also too, seeing him. I think the last time I saw him actually on TV, it was the build up to WrestleMania 32 with Dean Ambrose. That we always count that, his basic style right now is basically being a Terry Funk. It was Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar in a hardcore match. And the whole gimmick was Terry Funk handing Dean Ambrose the chainsaw, passing the torch to him. And I just remember that. I was like, well, fuck, is he going to bring the chainsaw to the ring and fucking murder Brock Lesnar with it? What's going on here?
That's awesome. Awesome.
That's the last time I saw Terry Funk on TV, was when he gave Dean Ambrose the chainsaw, brother.
Have you ever seen that entire show of the matches you're talking about, those hardcore matches that they were showing highlights from? Have you ever seen that entire show, that entire tournament?
Which tournament?
So there's one. So the famous one that WWE shows clips from is the one where it's like a deathmatch tournament in Japan, and Foley and Terry Funk are in it. If you haven't seen that, you should watch it. It is really good. I mean, it's hardcore, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's probably on YouTube now. I used to watch it on VHS.
Yeah.
When I saw him as Chainsaw Charlie, my friend who got me back into wrestling says, "Oh, you need to see this." And then we watched that whole tournament, and it's nuts. I mean, the things that they were doing for the amount of money that they were getting paid is pretty much
it's pretty wild. Crazy. The thing, it was a tournament too. You had to go through levels of that shit. So.
Oh yeah, and then they would wrestle multiple nights, and then the other big thing I can think of in my life from Terry Funk is his feud with Hulk Hogan, which I think is the one you're talking about from Saturday Night's Main Event.
Yeah,
because that should have been, because I can remember reading an interview with Terry Funk where he was saying that should have been a lot larger, a lot bigger thing, but WWF fired him right after that before it got big. But that match is also really good between Hogan and Flair, Flair and Funk.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be talking about that one probably in the distant future.
Distant future.
But also, I didn't realize too, like he was in a couple like legit movies. Like Terry Funk was.
Yeah, he was in Roadhouse.
He was in Roadhouse, of all things. Time Stalkers, he was in there. Over the Top, and Paradise Alley. Those are the ones he made in the late 70s and 80s as well. So yeah, like I said, like, big name, big star. I mean, fuck. I mean, it's crazy to think, like, like when I think about Terry Funk, it's just the longevity and like the amount of just wrestling and promotions that he's worked for and he's helped out. Like, and also too, you never hear a bad word about this guy ever. You know what I mean? Like super.
No.
Put do the job. Do everything. Make some stars, make some money. You know what I mean? Constant professional. I mean, it's crazy to think, dude. Like this guy was like the nicest guy, but his character was legit. Like he would just piss people off, bro. He was great about getting heat too. Like there's a couple like, when he's a heel and stuff. Like he was just like pissing everybody off. It just wonders to watch.
He was really good at it, yeah. Gosh, I wish we could get this. I remember being told a story. So in Greensboro, there's a guy who owns a comic shop, and I cannot think of his name right now. But he's been in Greensboro forever and ever and ever. When I lived in Greensboro in the 90s, he was there, and he's still there to this day. But he was a huge wrestling fan in the 70s and the 80s. And I remember going in there a few years ago, and he told me this story about going to see wrestling at the Greensboro Coliseum, and he made this big sign. He was like right on the ramp, not the ramp, but the walkway where they come down, and he was holding up this big sign that said "Funk is a punk," and he was holding this sign out, and then Terry comes walking down, getting heat, on himself because he's a heel at times, getting heat on everybody, and then the guy points at his sign and he was like, "Terry, tear the sign up." And then and he kind of stopped and like broke character for a minute. And he's like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah." So he grabbed the guy's sign and just like ripped it up and then like threw it back at him and then like got more heat and went to the ring. But I think that was a really good story about Terry Funk because he was a super nice guy from every story I've ever heard about him. But he was also like really good at being a bad guy too.
Yeah,
like really good at getting.
I mean, you could just watch him on the fucking TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking ripping people apart. I mean, fuck. Like, I think the best when he was doing that was like, he was just out there just like, he did a really good job in ECW as a bad guy. And he did a great job in just everywhere. Even the WWF as a good bad guy. I mean, pretty much everywhere. Like, he could play both roles great. He could be the lovable, grandpa figure that's going out there, middle-aged and crazy.
Middle-aged and crazy.
Even though it's crazy to think about, though, like, so like when Terry Funk was doing like his ECW stuff, he was only 50. We're seeing people 50 right now wrestling. Like, you know what I mean? And they don't call them old.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like Sting's out there, Jericho's out there. It's just crazy to think about.
Well, I mean, wasn't there also like a thing where Terry Funk when he was about to get to 35, he was like, "Oh, I need to retire because I'm getting old."
Yeah.
And I think it's a quote from him. Like at that time, he's like, I'm about to turn 35. He's like, I don't know how much longer I'm pretty old. I don't know how much longer I can be in this business.
Yeah. Just boom. Keep going. So, but yeah, that's some of our thoughts on Terry Funk. He will be missed, but like I said, on this podcast, we're definitely going to be talking about him some more because we cover all things 80s. Oh,
you'll hear about Terry Funk again.
Oh yeah, all the time. Especially when we find some hidden gems about the guy. You know what I mean? Because, every once in a while here in the Retro Blood, we'll find some hidden gems that we've never seen before or watched before. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But, we just wanted to do a little tribute to the late, great Terry Funk.